I was halfway through fixing the garbage disposal when I found the note. Not a love note. Not a crumpled receipt from some suspicious restaurant. Not a cliché lipstick-stained napkin. No, nothing so dramatic. Just a tiny square of paper, stuffed deep into the dark abyss of pipes, wrapped around what looked like a chewed-up pen cap. I wasn't even looking for evidence of anything. I was looking for the reason why the sink sounded like a jet engine every time I turned it on. But there it was, wedged between coffee grounds and what I suspected was last month's spaghetti. The note was damp, ink-smudged, barely legible. But I could make out a few words. Meet at the... And then, of course, right at the crucial moment, the rest of the sentence was blurred into oblivion by whatever horrors had been living inside that disposal. It's moments like these where a man is given two options. Option A, ignore it. Toss it in the trash. Convince yourself it was just a reminder note from months ago, possibly a grocery list, a scrap of nonsense. Pretend your life is exactly what you think it is. Option B, decide, against your better judgment, that this is the start of something. A mystery, a puzzle, a question you suddenly have to answer, even if you're not sure you want to hear the answer. Naturally, I picked option B, because what kind of person would I be if I didn't? I stood there, water dripping off my hands, staring at that ruined little note, feeling like I had just stumbled onto the first page of a novel I wasn't supposed to read. And that's how I ended up in the basement. Now, before you get the wrong idea, I wasn't doing some full-blown detective operation. I wasn't sneaking around in the dead of night with a flashlight in my teeth. I was just looking, casually, a normal amount of curiosity. Because here's the thing. I've been married to Anna for 10 years. A full decade. That's a long time to know someone. That's long enough to know that she doesn't just lose things. She is not the misplaces notes in the garbage disposal type. If she writes something down, it goes in a planner, on the fridge, somewhere logical. And if it was her note, why hide it in a place where it would get destroyed? So the basement. Specifically, the storage shelves, because that's where things that don't belong end up. You ever notice that? Basements are like time capsules of forgotten items, all packed away neatly until someone goes looking for them. And that's where I found it. An old wooden box. The kind you see in movies where people store sentimental things. Or, illegal documents. Either one. I opened it, expecting old letters, maybe some childhood junk. Instead, a single playing card. The King of Hearts. Now, I'm not an expert in ominous symbolism, but let me tell you, when you find a single playing card stored away in a mystery box next to a shredded note from your wife, it does something to a man. I flipped it over, checked for anything written on it. Blank. Crisp. Like it had been deliberately placed there. For a second, I just stood there, card in hand, heart pounding like I had discovered some national secret. Because this wasn't normal. This wasn't, oops, I forgot about that old thing. This was intentional. And that's when I heard it. Not footsteps. Not the front door opening. Something worse. Anna's voice. Behind me. What are you doing down here? I turned way too fast, slamming my elbow into the shelf behind me, knocking over what I'm pretty sure was a box of high school yearbooks and a jar of pennies. Casual. Totally normal behavior. She was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, eyebrows slightly raised. Not angry. Just curious. Like a teacher who caught a kid in the middle of a full plan. Just looking for a screwdriver, I said, very convincingly, considering I was holding a playing card. She tilted her head, glanced at the box in my hands. In an old storage box. All right. Fair point. Yeah. Well, I thought maybe I trailed off, deciding not to dig the hole deeper. Instead, I held up the card. What's this? I swear to you. I saw the flicker in her expression, the half-second hesitation, the micro-moment where her brain did some frantic math. Oh, she said, too casually. Must be from an old deck. A single card? From an old deck? That she stored in a wooden box like it was evidence? I let the silence stretch. Just a little. Just enough to watch her eyes flicker toward the stairs, like she was already trying to move the conversation away. Okay, I said, nodding. And the note? The what? I pulled the damp scrap of paper from my pocket and held it up like a crime scene investigator presenting a clue. Her mouth opened, closed, then. Oh, that's probably nothing. Where did you even find that? In the garbage disposal. She actually laughed. Laughed. Scott, why are you digging through the sink? Okay, that was a good deflection. Because now I was the weird one. Now I was the lunatic going through drain sludge like a conspiracy theorist looking for classified documents. But I wasn't letting it go. Meet at the what? I prompted, watching her closely. Another flicker. Another pause. Another too casual shrug. I have no idea. It wasn't mine. Wasn't yours. Nope. I stared at her. She stared back. The thing is, Anna is a good liar. Not because she lies often, at least I didn't think she did, but because she's got one of those faces. The kind of face that does not give anything away unless she wants it to. I had no idea if she was lying right now, and that's what made my stomach turn. Because before today, I wouldn't have even questioned it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because I was heartbroken or devastated or whatever dramatic nonsense people say when their world comes crashing down. No, I was wide awake because my brain refused to let this go. The note, the card, the way Anna looked at me when she realized I had both. It wasn't just guilt. It wasn't just lying. It was something else. Something that made my stomach twist in a way it never had before. At 3:47 a.m., I gave up on pretending to sleep and got out of bed. Anna was asleep, or at least pretending to be, wrapped in the blankets like a woman who had absolutely nothing to hide. That's what annoyed me most. I grabbed my laptop and went downstairs, flipping it open at the kitchen table. If I was going to dig into this, I needed to be smart about it. Logical. Like a man who wasn't losing his mind over a note found in a garbage disposal. Step 1. The card. I typed King of Hearts meaning into the search bar. Immediately, a flood of nonsense appeared. Love, romance, destiny, blah blah blah. Nothing useful. I scrolled further. The King of Hearts is often referred to as the Suicide King due to the way the sword appears to pierce his head in standard decks. Alright, great. So either Anna had left me a metaphor about our marriage, or I was looking too deep into a playing card. Neither answer helped. Step 2. The note. Now, this was trickier, because I had half a sentence and no idea what it meant. Meet at the was about as useful as finding a receipt without a store name. Could be anything. Could be nothing. But the fact that it was hidden told me it was definitely something. I stared at it for a long time, trying to piece together what it could have said before being obliterated by sink grime. Meet at the park? Meet at the store? Meet at the place where I betray my husband. All valid guesses. Then I got an idea. Anna's handwriting was ridiculously neat. The kind of neat that made you wonder if she was secretly a robot. If this note had been part of a longer message, there had to be more of it somewhere. I closed the laptop and went to the one place no spouse ever checks until they suspect something's up, the car. Now, don't get me wrong. Anna wasn't the type to leave incriminating evidence lying around. If she had anything worth hiding, she'd have made sure it wasn't just sitting in the glove compartment like an amateur. But people get lazy. They get comfortable. They let things slip. And Anna, for all her careful planning, was comfortable. I grabbed her keys from the counter and slipped outside. It was cold. Not that I cared. I unlocked the car, climbed in, and started my search. First, the obvious spots. Glove compartment, empty except for the manual and a crumpled gas station receipt. Center console, gum, chapstick, a pen that probably didn't work. Then, the less obvious. Sun visor, nothing. Seat pockets, random junk mail. And then, bingo. Tucked between the passenger seat and the center console, just barely out of sight, was another piece of paper. Folded neatly, just small enough that someone could have forgotten it was there. I unfolded it, heart pounding. Meet at the house Thursday. 6:30. I stared at it for a full minute, waiting for my brain to make sense of it. House. What house? We didn't have a second house. We didn't rent anywhere. We didn't own some mysterious piece of real estate I had somehow never heard of. So whose house was she meeting someone at? I looked closer. No name. No signature. Just those words, written in her stupidly perfect handwriting, like it was the most normal thing in the world. I checked the date on the gas station receipt in the glove compartment. Wednesday, which meant Thursday, today, was the day she was supposed to meet whoever this was. I sat there, gripping the paper, staring at the dashboard like it had the answers. There it was. The moment. The decision. Did I ignore it? Pretend I never found it? Go inside, kiss Anna on the cheek, and continue living my life like a complete and total moron? Or did I find out exactly what was happening at 6:30 tonight? Well, there was only one way this was going to go. Anna left the house at 5:45. Not at 6 o'clock, not at 6:30 to 5:45 exactly. The kind of precision that tells you someone really doesn't want to be late. which was interesting, considering she was usually the kind of person who showed up to events fashionably late and considered time a vague concept rather than an actual structure to follow. But today? No delays. No, hold on. I need to find my other shoe. No, I can't leave yet. I just remembered I need to water the plants. Straight out the door, keys in hand, without even pretending to make up an excuse for where she was going. I didn't ask. I didn't have to. I watched from the window as she pulled out of the driveway, turned left, and disappeared down the street like someone heading to an appointment they'd been looking forward to for weeks. Then I grabbed my keys. Now, before anyone jumps to conclusions, I wasn't following her. That would imply some kind of desperation, some kind of sad, dramatic, I need proof moment. I already had proof. I didn't need to sneak around in my own car like a rejected detective from a bad crime show. No, I was going directly to the house. The house that was mentioned in her little secret note. The house she thought I knew nothing about. There was only one problem. I had no idea where it was. At first, I assumed it had to be somewhere close. Anna wasn't exactly the kind of person who would drive 30 miles out of her way just to have some kind of secret meetup. She was convenient by nature. If it took effort, it wasn't worth it. So I started with the obvious. Anna's life was predictable. Work, errands, the occasional Pilates class that she never actually enjoyed but pretended to for the sake of her health. That meant the places she went to regularly were easy to track. I opened my phone, went to our shared location history, because yes, Anna had been the one to insist we keep our locations on at all times for safety reasons, and started scrolling. And there it was. A house. A location she had been to multiple times over the last few months. A place I had never noticed because, until now, I had no reason to be suspicious. It wasn't far. 15 minutes, max. I didn't hesitate. I got in the car, put in the address, and drove. When I pulled up to the house, I realized two things immediately. One, it wasn't just a house. It was nice. Too nice. The kind of place that made our house look like a mediocre rental in comparison. Big yard. Clean driveway. Fresh paint. The works. Two, Anna was already inside. I sat there for a minute, gripping the steering wheel, staring at the perfectly normal house in front of me. This was it. This was where she had been going. This was where she had been meeting someone at 6:30. And now, the real fun began. I got out of the car, walked up the driveway like I belonged there, and rang the doorbell. Silence. Then footsteps. Then the door opened. And standing there, looking like he had just seen a ghost, was Matt Pearson. If you don't know who Matt Pearson is, congratulations. That means you've never had to pretend to enjoy the company of someone who single-handedly drains the energy from a room. Matt Pearson was one of those guys. The kind who somehow inserted himself into every conversation, every social event, without actually being invited. He had been at our wedding, not because we actually wanted him there, but because he was just around. Always. Showing up to things, inserting himself into conversations that had nothing to do with him, acting like he was everyone's best friend when, in reality, nobody would notice if he disappeared. Except, apparently, Anna had noticed. "Scott," he said, blinking at me like I had just materialized out of thin air. "What are you doing here?" "Great question, Matt. Fantastic question. What am I doing here?" I repeated, stepping inside like I owned the place. "I don't know, Matt. Why don't you tell me?" Now, here's the thing. I wasn't angry. I wasn't about to start flipping tables or yelling like some kind of deranged reality TV contestant. No, I wanted answers. And Matt, for all his awkward, useless energy, was about to give them to me. He took a step back, clearly uncomfortable, which was exactly the reaction I wanted. This is my house." "Oh, I know," I said, looking around. "Nice place. When did you move in?" A couple of months ago." "Interesting. And Anna?" I continued, turning back to him. "How long has she been stopping by?" Now, Matt wasn't a good liar. He wasn't even a decent one. He was the kind of guy who tried to cover up an obvious mistake by digging himself into a deeper hole. And right now he was sinking. "Oh, cut it out, Matt." Anna's voice. I turned. She was standing at the end of the hall, arms crossed, looking more annoyed than guilty. Like I had inconvenienced her evening by showing up. Like I was the one who had somehow done something wrong. Which, honestly, was so on brand for her. Matt, to his credit, looked terrified. He was shifting from foot to foot like he wanted to be anywhere but here, which, fair. Because if anyone was going to crack under pressure, it was him. "So, I said, looking between them. Let's hear it. Anna sighed. Scott, can we not do this here? Oh no, let's definitely do this here. Right now? In Matt's fancy new house. The same house you've been secretly visiting. The same house you thought I wouldn't find. Anna rolled her eyes. Actually rolled her eyes. Like I was the inconvenient one in this situation. Matt, meanwhile, looked like he was about to pass out. And then, before she could say another word, I turned to him. Matt, I said, if you don't start explaining, I swear on everything, I will start making some wild guesses. And I don't think you want that. And just like that, Matt Pearson caved. Matt Pearson had the survival instincts of a hamster caught in a thunderstorm. One wrong question, and he was already shifting on his feet like a man who realized his entire life was one big mistake. His hands twitched at his sides, his lips pressed together so tightly they were turning white. He wasn't just nervous. He was terrified, which was exactly the response I was looking for. Matt, I said, giving him the kind of patient smile that wasn't patient at all. Let's try this again. Why is my wife here? Regularly. At your house. His mouth opened. Nothing came out. Anna let out an annoyed sigh behind me. Scott, this isn't what you think. I turned. Oh, good. So what is it then? Because I'd love to hear the explanation. Were you secretly visiting Matt Pearson's house like a dedicated door-to-door salesman? Makes perfect sense. Anna crossed her arms. You're overreacting. Am I? I looked back at Matt, who was still standing there like a deer waiting to get hit by a truck. Matt, buddy, you want to tell me what I'm supposedly overreacting about? Matt blinked rapidly, then glanced at Anna like he was waiting for permission. She shot him a look. A very clear, don't say anything stupid look. Which, if you know Matt, was a real challenge. He cleared his throat. It's complicated. I smiled. Fantastic. I love complicated. Please, enlighten me. Another glance at Anna. Another sharp glare in his direction. Another awkward nothing. All right, if that's how they wanted to play it. Matt, I said, stepping closer. I need you to understand something. I don't actually care about your well-being right now. Not even a little bit. So, if you keep standing there, looking at my wife like she's your legal representation, I'm going to assume the worst. And you really don't want me assuming things. That did it. Matt inhaled so sharply you'd think he was about to confess to murder. Okay, he rushed out. Just let me explain. Anna groaned, rubbing her forehead. Matt, shut up. No, let Matt talk, I said, folding my arms. I think Matt has something very important to say. Matt swallowed hard. Then he said, in the most panicked, rushed voice I have ever heard in my life. It's not an affair, I swear. It's about money. Huh, that was not the sentence I was expecting. I glanced at Anna. No reaction, which was very interesting. Money, I repeated, turning back to Matt. You're telling me my wife has been sneaking off to your house for months because of money? Yes. Whose money? He glanced at Anna again. She looked like she was 1 second away from committing an actual crime. So I stepped in front of him, blocking her from his line of sight. Matt, I need you to focus on me right now. Whose money? Matt hesitated. Then, in a voice so low I almost didn't hear it, he said, Yours. I just stood there for a second, letting that sink in. Then I blinked. I'm sorry, did you just say mine? Matt nodded quickly, like a man who desperately wanted to get this conversation over with. Yeah, she's been, moving some of it around. I turned to Anna, waiting for some kind of denial, some kind of protest, some kind of literally anything to explain why I was standing in Matt Pearson's overpriced house, being told that my own wife had been secretly moving my money. Nothing. Just the same flat, annoyed expression, like I had inconvenienced her by showing up. And suddenly, I knew. This wasn't panic on her face. This wasn't shock that I had found out. This was frustration that she hadn't had more time to cover her tracks. I exhaled sharply. Anna, please, tell me this fool is making things up. She looked at me. Then, very calmly, she said, It's not as bad as it sounds. Wow. Okay. That was not the sentence I wanted to hear. I let out a short laugh. I'd love to hear how it sounds, then. Anna finally unfolded her arms. I needed some of it, all right? I was going to tell you. Oh, really? That's why you hid it. That's why you've been sneaking off to Matt's house instead of, I don't know, using one of the multiple other ways to access money like a normal person? Anna sighed. Scott, don't be dramatic. Okay, sure, I'm the dramatic one, I said, throwing my hands up. I love when people break into their own spouse's finances, funnel money away, and then act like it's no big deal. Real casual hobby you picked up here. Matt, at this point, was physically sweating. Anna turned to him. Matt, leave. Matt didn't move. Just stood there, awkwardly shifting from foot to foot like a guy who had realized he was in the middle of a domestic disaster zone. Now, she snapped. Matt bolted. Actually bolted down the hall and into another room like a man fleeing a burning building, which left just me and Anna, standing there in her little side project house, in the middle of a conversation I never thought I'd be having. I exhaled. How much? She tilted her head. What? How much did you take, Anna? She hesitated. Then, finally, she muttered. 50. I stared at her. 50 what? She crossed her arms again. 50,000. I just stood there, processing, letting those words settle in my brain. Then, after a solid 10 seconds of silence, I nodded. All right. Cool. That's great. Anna groaned. Scott. No, really. I love that. That's a totally normal amount of money to secretly move without telling your husband. Nothing shady about that at all. I mean, people do this all the time, right? Just little fun financial surprises. Like a scavenger hunt, except instead of finding things, I just lose 50 grand. Anna rolled her eyes. You're making a big deal out of nothing. I pointed at her. That sentence right there? Not reassuring. She sighed, like I was exhausting her, which was really funny considering she was the one stealing from me. I had questions. I had so many questions. But first, I needed to hear it from her. I crossed my arms. Anna, where is my money? And for the first time all night, she looked nervous, which told me one thing. It was gone. Anna had exactly 3 seconds to come up with a response before I lost whatever remaining patience I had left. 1. She glanced at the floor, stalling. 2. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Bad sign. 3. Okay, don't freak out, she said, which, obviously, is the worst way to start a sentence when you've been caught stealing 50 grand from your husband. I pinched the bridge of my nose. Anna, I am at my absolute capacity for not freaking out, so just say it. She let out a slow breath like she was the one dealing with something unbearable. I invested it. I blinked. You what? I invested it, she repeated, like that was a normal, reasonable thing to do with someone else's money. I stared at her. I'm sorry you invested my money? Without telling me. Technically, it's our money. Anna, don't. Not right now. She crossed her arms. It was supposed to be a surprise. A surprise, I echoed, nodding like that made perfect sense. Wow. Yeah, that's great. Love surprises. Let's hear the details of this little investment adventure. What did you put it into? Stocks? Real estate? Something normal? Silence. And there it was. The look. The one where someone knows they screwed up, but is desperately hoping they can talk their way out of it anyway. I sighed. Anna. She shifted on her feet. It's a business. I nodded. Great. A business. And what, pray tell, does this business do? More silence. Then, finally, she mumbled. Cryptocurrency. I closed my eyes. Counted to 5. Opened them again. I need you to really think about whether or not you want to lie to me right now. Anna hesitated. Then, barely above a whisper. A self-improvement retreat. I just stood there, hands on my hips, processing the absolute idiocy of what had just left her mouth. You took $50,000 from our bank account, I said, to invest in a self-improvement retreat. She nodded, avoiding eye contact. I inhaled sharply. I need you to be incredibly specific right now, because if you tell me this is one of those manifest your own reality cults, I will walk out of this house and never come back. Anna groaned, rubbing her temples. Scott, don't be ridiculous. Ridiculous is when someone puts too much money into fantasy football. Ridiculous is when someone buys a boat they can't afford. What you did is called fraud. It's not fraud. It's fraud if it's stupid. And this is feeling very stupid. Anna rolled her eyes. You don't understand. It's a new concept. It's about, if you say the words holistic or empowerment, I swear, wellness coaching. I let out the loudest, most exasperated sigh of my entire life. Of course it is. She gestured vaguely. It's like a lifestyle brand, right? A lifestyle brand that you, a person with zero business experience, funded with my money. That sounds totally legitimate and not like a complete disaster waiting to happen. It's not like that, she insisted. It's exclusive. It's for people who want to change their lives. Right, right. And what, exactly, are these people paying for? She hesitated. Anna. She sighed. Mindset transformation. I closed my eyes again. You mean talking? It's more than that. Let me get this straight. You gave $50,000 to a bunch of scam artists who convinced you that charging people for mindset transformation is a legitimate business model. They're not scam artists. Oh, okay, sorry. What's their official title? She hesitated again. I folded my arms. Anna, who did you give my money to? She let out a long breath. Then, in a voice so quiet I almost didn't catch it. Matt. I blinked. I blinked again. Then, very slowly, I said, You mean Matt Pearson? She nodded. I stared at her. Then I stared at the hallway where Matt had literally sprinted away like a guilty little weasel. And finally, everything clicked. I exhaled, pressing my hands against my face. Okay, let me see if I've got this straight. You took our money. You gave it to Matt Pearson, who, as far as I can tell, has the business sense of a wet paper bag, and he's using it to fund some kind of motivational cult. It's not a cult. Really? Tell me, do people pay ridiculous amounts of money to sit in a room while some guru tells them how to fix their lives? It's not a cult. I threw my hands in the air. Fantastic. Love that for us. Anna groaned. Scott, it's not a big deal. Not a big deal. I repeated, laughing in disbelief. You gave a guy who still wears cargo shorts a business loan. It's an investment. In what? A PowerPoint presentation about the power of positive thinking. She sighed dramatically. This is why I didn't tell you. You're so negative. I pointed at her. This is why I'm negative. Because every time I start to think my life is normal, you do something like this. Anna rubbed her temples again. Scott, it's already done. I can't take it back. I stared at her. What does that mean? She hesitated. Anna, I said, voice low. Where is the money? She glanced at the floor. I took a deep breath. Anna, they used it. Silence. I clenched my jaw. Used it. As in it's gone. She shifted uncomfortably. I turned toward the hallway. Matt. Nothing. I stormed toward the door, throwing it open. Matt, you little financial disaster. Get out here right now. Matt poked his head around the corner, looking like a kid caught stealing from the cookie jar. Where, I said, is my money? Matt blinked. It's in the business. Be more specific before I start throwing furniture. Matt cleared his throat. It went to startup costs. I exhaled through my nose. Startup costs. He nodded rapidly. Matt, I stepped forward. Let me ask you something. Did you, by any chance, spend any of my money on something stupid? Matt hesitated. Then, in a voice so small I almost didn't hear it. A yurt. I stared at him. A what? A yurt, he repeated. I pressed my fingers against my forehead. You spent my money. On a tent. It's a transformational space. I turned back to Anna. I'm getting a divorce. And for the first time all night, she actually looked worried. Matt was still standing there, looking like a raccoon caught stealing from a vending machine, while Anna had crossed her arms so tightly, she looked like she was physically holding herself together. Me? I was just trying to process the fact that my wife and Matt Pearson had teamed up to funnel $50,000 into what was, at best, a really terrible business idea and, at worst, an outright scam featuring a glorified camping tent. I turned to Matt. So, let me get this straight. The money's gone. Matt hesitated. Not gone. It's just, tied up in the business. I nodded slowly. Tied up. Right. And what exactly does tied up mean? Matt cleared his throat. We used it for, infrastructure. I squinted at him. You mean the yurt? He gulped. And marketing. Marketing. I repeated, my patience dangling by a thread. And what does your cutting-edge marketing strategy include? Matt straightened up, like he was about to present a TED Talk on how to light 50 grand on fire. Well, we bought some ad space on a few wellness websites. You know, places where people go when they want to change their lives. Really target the audience. I blinked. Matt, be honest with me. Did you, or did you not, spend my money on Facebook ads? Matt coughed. Not just Facebook. Also Instagram. I turned to Anna. This is the man you trusted with our finances. Anna threw up her hands. Scott, you're blowing this out of proportion. Out of proportion? I repeated, laughing in disbelief. Anna, I work 40 hours a week. I have actual responsibilities. And meanwhile, you're out here laundering our savings through Matt Pearson's tent-based financial disaster. It's not a tent, Matt muttered. I ignored him. Anna, look at me. What was the plan? What was supposed to happen after you sank our money into this circus? She sighed. It was supposed to grow. People pay for sessions, for mentorship. It's about building a community. Right, I said. And how many people have actually paid for this groundbreaking experience? Silence. Then Matt said, way too quietly. 2. I held up a hand. No, don't say another word. I need to sit with this. I walked over to a chair and sat down. Just sat there, staring at the ceiling, wondering how this was my life. Anna sighed dramatically, like she was the victim here. Scott, you need to calm down. It's already done. There's nothing you can do about it now. I looked at her. Oh, I absolutely can do something about it. Her expression flickered. What's that supposed to mean? I stood up. It means, Anna, that I am not going to be married to a woman who steals from me and funds Matt Pearson's journey to self-discovery nonsense. I'm done. Now, that got a reaction. Her eyes widened. Scott, don't be ridiculous. I gestured around. You literally stole my money and invested it in a yurt. I feel like I'm being extremely reasonable. She scoffed. Oh, please. You're acting like I blew it all in Vegas. This is a business. No, it's a disaster. And I refuse to be part of it. Matt, sensing that this was about to go nuclear, did the only thing Matt Pearson was good at, cowardly retreat. I'm just gonna give you guys some space, he mumbled, before speed walking into another room. Anna groaned. Scott, this is absurd. So what? You're just going to leave? Over this? I nodded. Yes. She scoffed again, but this time, I saw the tiniest flicker of panic behind her eyes. Like she was just now realizing that actions have consequences. Scott. She tried again, softer this time. Come on. This is just a misunderstanding. I laughed. Actually laughed. Anna, misunderstandings are when you forget to take the trash out. Stealing 50 grand and dumping it into a scam is called fraud. She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Because what was she going to say? That I was wrong. That I should just let it go? I shook my head. I'll be by to pick up my stuff tomorrow. Don't try to contact me. I turned toward the door. She called after me. Scott, be reasonable. I paused, looked back at her one last time. Then I smiled. You know what's reasonable, Anna? Prenups. Should have had one. And then I walked out, leaving her and Matt Pearson's delusional dreams behind. The next day, I moved out. Filed for divorce that week. As for Matt and his yurt empire, well, let's just say that an IRS audit is a real fun thing to report when someone's running a business without any actual paperwork. And me? I was finally free. No more Anna. No more nonsense. No more financial disasters disguised as investments. Just me, my bank account, and a life that no longer included Matt Pearson. And honestly, that was the best investment I ever made. The end. Thanks for watching. Rate the story in the comments. Subscribe to the channel